The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
This is Haymaker Combat Sports. Here, coming straight from the source. Only with the real, they ain't here to dress it up. Sweet science, MMA, you can get it all from us. Trust, 5 stars cause it's live. And through the fight game, we can guide ya. Slick talking, putting them in caution. Passing all the goals cause the audio is awesome. What you waiting for? Spread the word, tell a friend. This the podcast where all of the discussion ends. When they start going strike for strike, this the show that'll tell you what you seen in the fight. They ain't playing on the mic, this a welcome to the show. Warm it up for the squad, Haymaker of the bros. I'm a bow wow, you can hear it from the pros. It's Haymaker Combat Sports, time to roll.
Welcome back to Haymaker Combat Sports, powered by the Belly Up Sports Media Network. I'm your host, EJ Reed, joined by my fellow host, Aaron Admire, Steve Johnson. Fellas, how's it going?
Not Friday yet. I'm tired. I stayed up watching the fights, and I don't feel like they went longer than usual, but I felt like I was up really late, and I'm still tired from it.
Yeah, I was on the East Coast watching it, and I'll get into that more in a little bit. But those fights, I can't see how I used to do it back in the day when I used to live on the East Coast. The fight was almost over, I think 1 a.m. It was crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna say it was close to midnight, and then I stuck around and watched some of the pressers and stuff. It was a late night, and at this age, it lasts a couple days.
Steve, what about you?
It went pretty good. Went this weekend, watched it, relaxed, and enjoyed myself.
Yeah, so I was in DC. This is a holiday weekend for me, and it was my niece's birthday. My sister lives out there with her family, her husband, and her 2 kids. So I went to a birthday party at a little indoor climbing facility. So you see a bunch of kids running around. Definitely an interesting experience. And I watched the fight with my dad and my brother-in-law. I don't think I've ever watched a fight with my dad before, which was interesting. You know, he was just like a super casual observer. But my brother-in-law, he knew a little bit. I was surprised because I never really talked about him with fighting in the past. He knew a little bit. He was talking about the fight last month and whatnot. So that was interesting. You know, you learn something new every day. But I also have a buddy out there I went to high school with, and I hung out with him, and we went to the casino out there in Maryland. I think it's in Maryland. Is it the National Harbor? They have a big MGM there, and we went there. And I lost money, and I wasn't happy about that. And my homeboy, he won a bunch of money, so I was kind of salty about that. He doubled his money, and I lost. I didn't lose a huge amount, but more than I wanted to lose, because I usually do roulette, and I usually have a tactic where I'll keep betting on if I do evens or red or black, I'll just keep doubling down until it hits. But it hit 7 or 8 blacks in a row. I'm what is going on, man? Sometimes I think things are fixed, man. And my homeboy, he hit on 2 numbers twice. Well, he hit on 1 number twice, but he put 5 or so bucks on 5 or something, and it hit 2 times in a row. And he hit on 1 of them, which is man, what the hell? And he ended up doubling what he. So of course, drinks were on him. But yeah, man, it's either hit or miss with me at casinos, man. I know you used to dabble a little bit back in the day, Admire.
Yeah, dude, and I believe that roulette's fixed. How you can say, how is a wheel with a bouncing ball fixed? I'll give you an example. Me and my mom, one of the last times I went to the casino, my daughter's birthday is February 29th, leap year. So I played 29, and I put $1 on it. Doesn't hit. Put $2 on it, and I added $1 every time it didn't hit. Got up to $20, and it didn't hit. So I said, I'm done. I'm walking away. The very next spin, it hit 29. I don't see how that happens, man. I understand there's 36 numbers on the wheel. There's 2 zeros, but it's just weird that they would have been paying me out a lot of money. Like once I got up to $20 on a spin for 29, it would be like a payout of 720. And then the very next spin, it's wild.
Man, I'm with you, man. I kind of feel like they have it fixed because I know it's odds and numbers. I know mathematicians and nerds could give me like the statistics about it, but like I said, it hit black 9 times in a row or like 8 times in a row. It's supposed to be 50-50. And I'm like, man, what is going on? But hey, that's why they call it gambling. You don't call it for sure.
Yeah. They keep the lights on somehow.
Yeah. You know what they say, the house always wins.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if you win one time, you'll always be back and you'll always lose more than you're winning.
Yeah, that's why I'm not like a huge gambler. But oh well, you win some, you lose some. But speaking of numbers, usually we save the news stories for the preview show, but we got to talk about this because breaking news after this past weekend's card, the main event for UFC 300 was finally announced. And we get the huge matchup of Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill for the UFC light heavyweight title. And of course, it was a big uproar on all social media platforms about this. Before I get into my thoughts, what was y'all's first impression when this was announced? I'll start off with you, Admire.
Yeah, I sent you the message. I'm just like, well, okay. I mean, it's another one of those fights. It's great on its own. It would be its own card, but not a 300 card. You know, the 300 card, 200 card, 100 card, huge main events. And then you come out with Alex and Jamal Hill. And I kind of feel bad for Jamal Hill. I know he's got to sell it, but in his interviews, he's like, this is the fight that they really wanted to make for UFC 300. No, it wasn't, man. We all know that. Like, you can't tell us this was the fight that they were shooting for and waiting on. Like, they asked John Jones to come back. McGregor probably could have had it if he wanted it. There was, talks of Khabib coming back. There was probably 10 other fights that they tried to get before this one. And I'm sure it'll be a great fight. It'll probably be a banger, but it's just not that headliner that I was expecting. I don't know, Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, and I think I even saw something on YouTube to where it was more of a struggle or a hustle to get this 300 or a main card, because I think Jamal Hill confirmed it on accident, saying that he just got the call not too long ago from the interview, which is in contradiction into where Dana White's making it seem like this was already always planned. And like I said, this seems like a good fight to be like one of the co-mains. But it seems like one of the main events would be like lightweight against welterweight, or welterweight against middleweight, something insane. And this is just a nice fight. I like seeing it, but I think for 300 is underwhelming for a main card fight.
Definitely, and I don't want to throw shade at either one of the guys, especially Jamal Hill. I'm a big Jamal Hill fan, but when you're talking about 300, it's supposed to be like a landmark event and whatnot, and you wanted to try to maybe get like that splash fight that's on paper where you get the mainstream audience to come out. This is almost like a hardcore fight fans card, and to look at the silver lining in it, I guess if this is what you want to do to maybe build your company moving forward, because if either one of these guys end up becoming like a legend, you can look back on it retroactively like, man, 300 was a big card, but at this moment, like, it just really doesn't have that sizzle that we were all looking for. But I want to ask both of you a few questions, actually, follow up that news. What do y'all think was the intended main event? And you think this might have been like a backup plan? If you had to speculate, what if like throw 2 or 3 fights out there you think may have probably they were aiming that main event this one? I'll start for you, Steve.
Possibly maybe they were relying on Pierre going up to heavyweight, middleweight, light heavy, and try to attack heavyweight, but we see that wasn't the case. I could say Connor, as far as one of those big names to pull. And I even hear John Jones was one of those cases, but it seems like I don't think they could come to terms with John Jones. Those are my top main fights. I think that they were pushing through, and it just didn't happen. And they knew Jamal Hill was probably ready, or on thinking outside the box. What if Jamal Hill's just taking an early return and just taking an opportunity?
Yeah, could be. Yeah, Admire.
Yeah, the ones Steve mentioned for sure. I think Jones was kind of offered the fight. I guarantee you that McGregor was offered the fight. I mean, easily. We can say that was happening. I think that they probably were trying to get Brock behind the scenes. He's made 100, 200, make him a staple of the hundreds. And I really think that they were trying to do Piera and Aspinall. I think that they are putting everything they have behind Alex. I don't know why. I mean, he's a great fighter, exciting fighter, never really boring fight, but they're putting a lot on him and kind of rushing him through I think that's what they really wanted. So they got him on the fight card. It was just matching him up with somebody.
So I get it. Yeah, the on paper, Pierre and Aspinall, it's kind of a sexy fight just because you have him trying to get that third belt in the third different division and whatnot. But still, I don't think that would be like a needle mover as far as like getting the casual fans. Of course, us hardcore fight fans would love it, but I don't know how much the casuals would be drawn by that fight. But if I were to say the fight that they had lined up potentially that they wanted before they announced this fight, basically piggybacking off what both y'all said, of course, Conor McGregor, Chandler, and I don't know, they're being super like vague about why McGregor's not able to fight right now. Maybe he can't pass drug tests. They don't have USADA anymore, but maybe he still can't pass a drug test. I don't know, because from what we've heard, he's pretty much fully healed. So who knows? Maybe some money dispute. What are you gonna say, Admire?
Yeah, somebody asked Dana White that at one of the pressers, and they're like, "When's McGregor gonna fight?" And Dana White basically said he'll fight when he wants to fight. He's fucking rich. Like, you can't really force his hand. Like, he's a made man. So it's kind of on his own timeline of when he wants to return.
If you don't have the fire anymore, then high chance you're gonna get knocked out or look terrible. So if he doesn't have the desire to fight, then he just needs to stay his ass at home. But I definitely think that was high up on the list. And I think one of y'all mentioned this fight too. I think John Jones, I think they wanted to get him and Stipe on this card, but Jones is methodical about when and where he fights. So you're not going to rush him to get back if he doesn't want to. So once he turned it down, I think they were scrambling after that. Another fight, I don't think y'all mentioned this one, but I think they probably wanted Izzy and DDP to fight on this one, which will be a really quick turnaround for DDP, and maybe Izzy's not ready, getting over those mental hurdles that he has from losing a couple fights in the past year or so. But I definitely think they want Izzy on there. And like Am I mentioned, I think a splash one that's outside the box where, I didn't even hear rumblings about this, but like you said, Brock Lesnar would have been a big splash. But I mean, he hasn't fought 2016, almost 8 years now, and he's in his mid to late 40s. So, and the elephant in the room, those accusations he was in that one with the Vince McMahon accusations. So he's got some legal hurdles to overcome too. So we can see. That's why I don't think we saw any reports of Brock Lesnar. But yeah, man, I guess it is what it is. We just got to enjoy what we have. But before we move on to the next topic, So if y'all have to predict, what do y'all think this will garner as far as pay-per-view buys? Just off the top of your head, how many buys?
I'd have to look at some of the past ones. I mean, it'll do better than most just because you do have a lot of star power in it. This brings out more casual people than a normal card, but I still don't think it hits like UFC 200 or something like that. So,
Okay, so I'll give you a gauge. McGregor and Habib was the most high-selling pay-per-view as far as MMA goes. It was like 2.1 or 2.2, maybe even 2.6. It was up there in the 2 millions, and nobody's hit 2 millions in pay-per-view. Really good is like 800. That's really good. Anything a million and up is great. Like good is like 800, and like 600 if you have like a fairly known fighter, that's not terrible. But then like you start to get 400s and below, that's pretty bad. So if you had to guess, Amar, what do you think this one will sell?
I'm gonna go right at 1 million.
Oh, just based off its 300.
Yeah, I think it'll do good, but I don't think it'll do good as good as like UFC 200 was right around 1 million. So I think it's going to be about the same. And the reason I say that is because you have more restaurants and bars doing the fights now. So not as many people have to buy them. And you have more people sailing the high seas, pirating that stuff. So I think you get right around 1 million with it.
Steve, what do you think?
I would have to agree, if not a little bit above. I say maybe 1.2 or 1.4. Like we were talking about earlier, there's not enough outside eyes, except from hardcore MMA fans to just totally adore this card. I really think it's gonna aim around that area.
You said 1.3, you said?
1.2 or 1.4, one of those.
Man, y'all are pretty optimistic. Like I said, I like Jamal Hill. I'm a fan of Pierre's style, but I don't know, man. I'm gonna say that it sells 800, which is not terrible, but it's not like what you expect like an event like that to be. I think it'll be, unless it may surprise me, like Amar said, like bars and stuff carry it automatically, and we still remember that it's behind that ESPN paywall too. So that McGregor and Khabib was right before they went to ESPN, I think. But McGregor, I think he's broken 1 million since being behind that paywall. I think him and Cowboy sold like 1 million, and then the Poirier fights. But yeah, I'd say 850. I'll give it a few more.
And I mean, let's go through the fight card though. Think about how many different countries are represented on this fight card too, though. So you're pulling in, the people that want to see, the Chinese fighters fight. You're pulling in the people that want to see the Brazilians fight. So I mean, just the names off the card: Bobby Green, Jim Miller, Jessica Andrade, Marina Lopez or Rodriguez, Sadiq Yusuf, Diego Lopez, Holly Holm, Kayla Harrison. Kayla Harrison's going to bring in the boxing crowd. Figueiredo, Cody Garbrandt, Bo Nickel, Cody Bundridge, Calvin Kattar, Aljamain Sterling. Yuri is on this card. Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway, Wei Lee is on here against Jan, and then Alex Pereira, Jamal Hill. Like, you have a bunch of different countries represented there. I think it's going to do a little better than average.
Yeah, I think Kayla may bring some eyes in. She's got the gold medal in judo, and she's like almost like they're supposed to be the next Ronda Rousey. But then you said there's a bunch of other countries represented. But when they talk about pay-per-view buys, it's only taking into account the U.S. pay-per-view buys, because usually other countries usually don't have pay-per-view. They usually have it like over their TV subscription or whatever. So pay-per-view buys usually strictly based on the U.S. numbers. So, but we got a lot of people that migrate here. So like you said, it brings in all different types of flavor. So you never know. I hope it does more than 1 million. That means the sport is moving forward and not necessarily having one star to carry it. I think that was their goal when they switched over to ESPN and Reebok, and everybody looks the same. Everybody, dresses the same with the Reebok and whatnot, and they churn these cars out every weekend, and nobody really has a personality. But yeah, we'll see what happens. What is it? It's late February, so we're about. Is it early April that 300 is happening?
April 13th. So we got 2 months.
So we're about 2 months out, and we all know how the UFC goes. A fight might drop out, and somebody might have to replace somebody. So we'll see what happens. But before we move on to this card, Michael Chandler, we were talking about Conor McGregor earlier. He showed up to Monday Night Raw yesterday, and since this TKO merger, we hadn't seen any real crossover like that. So I'm gonna run this clip really quickly, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. So Michael Chandler pulled up because they both Raw and the pay-per-view were in Anaheim. So I guess this is the first step of more synergy between both companies. So we'll run the clip real quickly. Y'all see?
Yep.
Please welcome UFC lightweight fighter Michael Chandler.
Hey, what's up, Anaheim? Oh, hey, you are now in the presence of the most entertaining UFC fighter on the planet.
Okay.
Hey, now there's a man from Ireland that's been making me wait for way too long. And I still got one dude on my mind. Conor McGregor, get your handy ass back to the octagon. We got some unfinished business, boys. God bless. I'll see you at the top.
All right. Okay.
So what do y'all think? I think he did a good job, or with cringe?
It was the same call out that he basically has done multiple times. Like, he's chasing McGregor, and McGregor just doesn't care. I don't think. Like, that's the only fight you could make if McGregor does come back. But if I'm Chandler, I go look for another fight. I'm not going to waste my good years waiting on the payday. Go out there and just keep fighting. Like, stop chasing this one dude.
Yeah. Steve, what your thoughts on that little promo that he did?
Well, I was even seeing something online to where, hey man, he might as well put his foot in WWE if that cash fight don't work out. So I think he's getting his foot warm. I think people were saying that it's like, is he contemplating or is he signing with the WWE? Which I don't think that's what he's doing. But as far as cringe, yeah, a little bit. So far as the aspect as a UFC fighter going to a WWE platform to do it, that seems weird. But as far as speech, wasn't too cringe. But I don't know. And then the warfare of Conor McGregor. It's conference time. He's gonna eat all this up. Say, you waited for me. You waited for me. He's gonna say something like that, and it's gonna push it all in his face.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that this was because the fight is happening. Try to get some of the wrestling fans interested in it. But when Chandler did that, it really felt like Johnny Hendricks. We know how he used to beg for title fights after every win that he got. Dana, please, come on. I've earned it. I've won this many fights in a row. Please give me a shot, George.
Yeah, I forgot about that. You said Johnny Hendricks did that?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it worked. He got the fight, which I thought he won, but that's a story for a different day. I Yeah. So before we move on, do y'all think this is a trend or a blip? Y'all think y'all see this moving forward? Because, like I said, we've been PKO got announced like last April or last May, but we haven't seen a lot of crossover. Y'all think we'll see more UFC fighters like get on Raw or SmackDown and promote their fights like that?
Yeah, I think leading up to 300, you're going to see a little bit more of it. I think they're going to use this opportunity to try to pull some wrestling fans over to 300 and get them hooked.
How about you, Steve?
You might as well, if you had a 10-foot auditorium and you expanded it to 30-foot, why still keep using the 10-foot? I mean, WWE is latched on to the UFC company. I mean, that's free, another free platform. So I of course they would do it. I think.
Now, do y'all like this like cross promotion, or y'all think they should stay separate?
I mean, me personally, I think it's dumb, but but as a fight fan that wants to see the sport grow, I think it's good. So, I mean, it's a necessary evil.
Steve?
I think it's just two total different animals, and not saying a WWE fan can't switch over and like combat sports, but you're talking about people who are watching something that isn't real. I'm pretty sure y'all seen the internet meme, like it's real to me. Like,
Damn it.
I mean, if that was the case, I mean, you would have these WWE watchers watching UFC right now. I think UFC's been out there long enough to know of a fighter. And of course, you're going to get people to latch on just for seeing UFC fighters promote themselves on there. But I mean, I can't latch it in my mind. How you going to get somebody that, and I want to offend wrestlers, but it's something that's not real, and then get them to watch something that's real, unless they like combat sports and want to switch over.
I think one is a scripted program and one is legitimate sport. People actually getting into hand-to-hand combat. But I think there is some crossover. Each entity takes, some things and little tidbits from each other. Like the promo side, you see a lot of UFC fighters get like hyping up a fight almost like they're in the WWE. So I think there is some crossover in that aspect. And you see some little things that the UFC does that WWE will implement sometimes as well. A lot, especially with like the move set nowadays. Like you'll see a lot of knees and submissions that are done in the UFC. So I think that's where they take from the UFC. So I think there is a little bit of crossover. It's a lot of one fan base that doesn't do the other. There is a large fan base that doesn't overlap, but you do have some overlap. And I mean, it doesn't hurt. It only would give you more. Like, it wouldn't, it wouldn't hurt as far as viewership and stuff. So I say, why not? If it's not going to hurt anything. And you go, Steve.
Shit, I can't too remember what I was going to say.
Admire you something?
Yeah, I was going to say, to me, it really all started with Chael Sonnen. He got on the mic and he was like, to me, one of the first fighters that really promoted fights and sold fights with, just cutting promos and stuff. And I think that's where it really started to blend in. And, I think a lot of people have latched onto that. And I think that part's good for the UFC. What is it? Any press is good press. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm good with it. Just to me, I'm not in the wrestling world like a lot of people. I do watch, Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, some of the big events, but I don't get into the storylines and all that.
Yeah, and like you said, Chael Sonnen, he definitely took like the promo side of it to another level. But even before him, like you had Shamrock and Tito Ortiz going back and forth on the mic. I know we all seen the clip where he kicked the chair and Shamrock's talking about beating him within a half inch of his life and kicked the chair, and like Ortiz laughed at him in his face. So it's always been elements there. So like
I'm
I
gonna
said,
beat you into a living death.
yeah, exactly. And Tito laughed in his face. So Shamrock was one of the early guys that did both. So yeah, like I don't think it'll hurt, and I don't think it helps. So I thought that was interesting. But fellas, let's finally start getting into this card that happened this past weekend. UFC 298 from Anaheim, California, at the Honda Center where the Ducks play. I think they call it the Duck Pond. But let's talk about the results of the early prelims and the prelims. Women's flyweight, we had Miranda Maverick defeating Andrea Lee by the unanimous decision. Oban Elliott defeating Val Woodburn in the welterweight division by unanimous decision. Danny Barlow defeating Josh Quinlan in the welterweight division. That wrapped up the early prelims. Then in the prelims, we had in the light heavyweight division, Zhang Mingyang defeating Brinson Ribeiro by KO. Bantamweight division, Ringen Nakamura defeating Carlos Vera by unanimous decision. With the heavyweights, the big boys, we had Marcos Rogero de Lima defeating Junior Tafa by TKO with leg kicks and punches. And then to wrap it up, in the women's strawweight division, we had Amanda Lemos defeating Mackenzie Dern by unanimous decision. Did y'all fellas get to check out any of the prelims?
I watched the prelims, even the early prelims, but I don't remember much of them. I do remember the Lemos and Dern fight. That was pretty, okay, blah. There's a couple good finishes. I remember that, but I was on my phone most of the time through the prelims because none of the fighters really, no real big names except for the Lemos Dern fight.
Steve, you get to watch any of them?
Oh, I was watching all of them. Didn't pay attention till the second fight of the whole night of the prelims. And like Admar said, I paid some of these fights that real can't remember, but most of them I do. Like I said, I've seen the Oban and Val Woodburn, Josh Corwin, Danny Barlow. Don't remember the Zhang and Brinson too much. Or the Nakarama or Carlos Vera. Marcos Rogera. And I watched the Amanda Lemos and Mackenzie Dern.
So when did I start watching? I started watching during the Miranda Maverick Andrea Lee fight. So from the first fight, like it was like the third round when I started watching. So I pretty much watched all the prelims, but I had kids running around in the background and I was with my family when the prelims were on. So I didn't really get a chance to actually have laser focus with it. Like y'all, I had a mom, but I wasn't paying attention very closely. But the Min Yang fight, that was pretty notable because he slept them with that one. I can't remember the sequence that led to it, but with the Lima fight in Tafa, like I said, I had it on the background, but I looked up and Junior Tafa was basically finished. So I don't know if any of y'all remember any of the sequences of that one.
No, I was too buried in my phone.
I was, and I wasn't even watching this one 100% attention, but I do remember this one. Lima was tearing, and I was watching this one because I like the factor of his brother filled in for him when he couldn't. So that was like a little quick background story that wasn't a championship fight. So I thought that was cool or something. But he got his legs tore up, and Lima went in there and took care of business. It was basically leg kicks mostly what came to his demise.
Yeah, those big boys, they don't play around when it comes to like those leg kicks. Like you take a couple of those, you're done. But we definitely got to talk about the Lemos and Dern. Like I said, I had like a split screen on because I was in the room with my family, and I had the dunk contest on one screen and then this fight on And from what I saw, it was Lemos was getting the best of Dern on the feet. It was a close fight though, from what I saw, and when Dern is able to clinch, that's more of her game. But I know you said you weren't paying too closely to Admire, but I guess what were your thoughts on it?
I mean, it was good. It was pretty evenly matched as far as the striking. When, like you said, when Dern tied up, against the cage, she had a little more success there. But to me, the right decision was made. Lemos looked like the better fighter. I think I picked Dern going into this, but didn't turn out that way.
Yeah, I know we didn't officially pick the fight because on the prelim, but I don't know who I thought was going to win. But what were your thoughts on it, Steve?
Yeah, I think, of course, she's a practitioner of what she does. But I think every time she's one of those fighters that get up to, and it seems like they push her to many chances. I mean, I don't know if but it seemed like they pushed her up there to try to be up there in the upper ranks. And I don't think she has that long of a career because it seems like she's been getting out busted every one of these fights lately, especially these upper rank fighters. 'Cause like you said, man, these fights stand up, and she don't have an amazing wrestling technique to get people down either. So she's sitting there having to strike, and she's not an amazing practitioner at that. So she has a lot of thinking. I don't know if she's possibility of her body size. She can go up or I don't think there's a down. And
Yeah, there's no down.
Reevaluate.
So she has been trading wins and losses lately. Until now, this is the first time she's lost back-to-back fights. She lost to Jessica Andrade back at the New York card. So I don't know, like, where you think she goes from here? Because like Steve said, they've been trying to prop her up as the next big thing. Maybe or maybe not because of her looks. I don't want to go and make assumptions, but yeah, where does she go from here? Since they've been trying to like prop her up as the next big thing in this division, and she seems like she can't get over the hump.
Yeah, she can't go over the hump. They really want her to. I wouldn't be surprised if you see her make maybe a weight change just to kind of change things up, fight some new faces. I don't know what you do from there and how many second chances you give her. She's lost 4 of her last 6.
Yeah. 4 of her last 6. Yeah, she, like I said, she was trading off wins and losses, but that's 2 in a row now. So she only won 2 in the last 6 ones. So against Angela Hill and Tisha Torres. So should she go back to the bases and get somebody outside of the top 10? I guess maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it looks that way. It looks like she needs to. I mean, she needs a win now. Like, back off a little bit and fight somebody, lower star power, lower ranked, something like that, just to kind of get her, get her steam back. Otherwise, one more loss, it's, the famous 3-fight skid. She's in dangerous territory. But, they are kind of short on faces for the women, so she might get away with another loss, maybe 2, but I don't want to see it. I'd rather just see her maybe just shake it up and change weight classes and try something different.
So this is a tricky one though, because the only people that she's lost to are like high up in the division. So if she started losing to people that aren't ranked, I'll give you that. 3 losses, and they might reevaluate her and maybe think about cutting her. But she's only lost the high level people. Andrade, who's number 4 now, she just lost to Lemos. Lemos is number 3, so it's not like she's fighting slouches. And who else she lost to? Yan Nan, who's the number 1 contender right now. She lost to her. She lost to Marina Rodriguez, who's number 6. And then before that, Amanda Ribas, she basically flip-flopped. She lost to her all the way back in 2019, and they flip-flopped positions on the list. Dern was 7 going to this one. She dropped to 8, and Ribas went ahead of her. So the people I named, she's only lost the top 7 opponents. So I don't know. Like, she's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, right?
Right. I mean, that I don't want to call her a gatekeeper, but I mean, she can't get above that, like 7-level hump. She needs to back off, maybe fight like Michelle Watterson or Carolina, somebody like that. She's already beat Angela Hill, which I'm a big Angela Hill fan. I wouldn't mind watching that fight again, have them run it back. But I just, if she could go down in weight, she would probably do a lot better. I don't know if she could cut that or maybe go up.
And
well, I mean, there's really nowhere for her to go up. She's in strawweight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's kind of, her only choice is to go down. Yeah.
To go down in rankings or down in weight?
Down in weight. Oh,
she can't go down. I mean, they don't have the atomweight division. That's 105. So she'd have to go up. She'd have to go to 125 if she wanted to reevaluate. I remember early on she had troubles making weight. It seems like she corrected that, but maybe
she's strawweight, right?
Yeah, strawweight, 115.
Okay, so yeah, she would need to go up. That's what I meant. She would need to go up.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's. I don't know if like that would be the solution necessarily. It looks like Amanda Ribas is ranked in both of those divisions, which is interesting. Yeah, the bigger girls. I don't know if that'd be a necessary fix that she may be looking for, but because like Steve was talking about earlier, she's got world-class jiu-jitsu, but her wrestling to get people on the ground is sketchy.
Right.
So,
yeah. Get her up there. Have her fight Loopy. Have her fight Michelle Watterson.
I was just gonna bring that up before I talk about that. Steve, what do you think?
As far as like where her future is?
Yeah, because she only loses against top 7 opponents ranked, so it's not like she's losing against bums.
Yeah, that's what I said earlier. She gets to the top of these fighters and she can't penetrate, and every time she does, it's especially lately, these have been kind of bad losses. She's taking damage on her face, and I'm pretty sure that's her market too. So I mean, you especially well, her past too. I mean, you only can take so many of those battles before you start considering a new plan or retiring.
Yeah, I mean, back to what Amar said, I wouldn't mind see her face Lupi Godinez, but I don't know if UFC would necessarily want to pair those two up though, because I think they're banking on Lupi being a big star from Mexico. And like I said, they try to have Dern as the it girl of that division, and she hasn't broken through. Lupi's fighting at the Atlantic City card, so if she's able to get past Verna, maybe they pair those two up, and then have like top 10 versus she's number 8 now, Dern. So, and then if she were to lose, I guess against another top 10 person, then I guess just keep going down 11 through 15 until she can win, maybe. But like I said, I don't think she's in danger of getting cut, but she's got to right the ship soon. But we'll keep an eye on what happens with that. But let's get into this main card, fellas, with the UFC 298 that took place this past weekend. To kick this fight card off, we had Anthony Hernandez defeating Romy Kopylov in the middleweight division. So in that first round, Hernandez put the pressure on Kopylov, had him in a clinch, but it was pretty uneventful. And then in that second round, Hernandez kept putting the pressure on Kopylov, clipped them, but he was able to recover. Well, no, actually, my bad, I got it mixed around. Kopylov clipped Hernandez, but Hernandez recovered. And then Hernandez was just relentless with that pressure, got the takedown, and eventually got that rear naked choke. What were your impressions on this one, Am I?
Yeah, Kopylov came out, big strikes, a lot of kicks, stuffed so many takedowns. The first round, I think Hernandez landed like one takedown out of 11 attempts. So, Hernandez's game was known, right away that he wanted to get it down. Kopylov, wanted to strike. The round one is one of those things where I don't know how to score it because Hernandez pretty much seemed in control with the pressure, but Kopylov landed the bigger, better strikes, and I think did more damage. The old rules used to be these fights are scored on damage and control and whatever. So, on one hand, you had, more significant striking and damage, but then you had the other guy with the control attempting the takedowns, not necessarily landing them, only landing one in the first round, I think. So, yeah, the first round, hard to score for me. I think I scored it for Kopylov as I was watching, but then, it was inevitable. Hernandez was going to get a takedown and get a submission eventually. He wasn't slowing down with that. So it happened. And then he did a little showboating in the fight, right? Did you see him flip him off in the fight? And then as he was choking him out, he was making faces.
I think I vaguely remember that.
I think it was kind of Nate Diaz stylish as far as like choking him out while he knew he had it. Y'all are talking about it, it's like this one of the fights, just one fight on this main card that's blurry to me, but I do remember significantly him doing that.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on the fight, Steve?
Yeah, like I said, I wasn't too focused, but as far as like what I could see, he and Kopylov, I seen him hit some of his past fights, and like I said, he's a good stand-up fighter, and like you said, he got caught, and I think that just the relentlessness is just, and I think it was Kopylov's first time he was actually tested with maybe a formidable wrestler, and I don't think he was ready for Hernandez, when he finally did get his takedown. And if I can remember, his I don't know why the word comes out.
Kopylov?
His stamina. Yeah.
Stamina.
Hernandez stamina. It was definitely showing prevailing over Kopylov's to get that submission.
Yeah, I just think Hernandez is like you said, his stamina was able to push him through it and eventually get the takedown and that rear naked choke. So he did what he needed to do. But go ahead, Amir.
Yeah, that puts Hernandez in the top 15. He moves up to number 13.
Okay. So, he's
moving up the ranks. I'd expect to see him, with a higher level fighter next fight.
Definitely. So he's on the up and up. But let's get down to business. Talking about this next fight, the bantamweight division. We had Merab Dvalishvili defeating Henry Cejudo by unanimous decision. So about a minute and a half of the first round, Cejudo cracked Merab. Merab ate it and got the takedown. They eventually got back up to the feet. Merab cracked Cejudo later on in the round, but opened himself up for a takedown, and Cejudo was able to control him for pretty much the remainder of the round. And then in that next round, they were going back and forth on the feet. Both of them were landing hard shots, but Merab was able to get those two critical takedowns, which I think was crucial for him to win in that round. And then the third round was a pretty dominant one by Merab. He's known for that gas tank. He put more pressure on Cejudo and was styling on him. Picked him up, carried around the cage. He took him for a ride. Talking to Mark Zuckerberg, while doing it as well, and was able to secure that unanimous decision. What were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it was a pretty exciting fight. It just seemed like Cejudo burnt out like as the fight went on. He didn't look like the same fighter that he's always been. He did crack him good in the first round. He did get a takedown in the fight, but Marab was just very busy in that fight, threw almost 3 times as many strikes. Marab kind of, just outclassed him every which way. And I don't know if it's because Cejudo's getting older, he's a veteran, or if he's just out of it. We've seen him do a lot of weird shit outside of the cage, but Cejudo just didn't seem like there was any urgency as the fight went on. It didn't seem like he could do anything. Usually, if you see Cejudo get behind in a fight, he kind of switches up his game and he's able to turn it around, but he didn't look the same. And then, after the fight, we saw him lay down his gloves. That's been a huge thing. I don't know if it's popped up on your guys' radar, but on TikTok, it's all over. The UFC didn't let Cejudo talk after his fight. And Dana White's like, he retired before he even got a chance to talk. Like usually they give a little speech and retire, but he was done before that. So we didn't even give him the opportunity.
So I want to circle back around to what you just said. Before I do that, Steve, what were your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, big ups for Marab. The first round, from what I remember, I was feeling. I'm like, because I was going for Cejudo if I can remember. I can't remember. No, I think I can't remember.
We'll talk about the picks when we wrap it up.
As far as what I was feeling is it was a contestant first round and Cejudo was getting with him, and I was like, okay. And it's like something happened after the first round where either Marab left him in the dust or he totally mentally gave up. One of the two. I think it's just because when he was winning, it was more a consistency. There was goals. I'm trying to save the flyweight division, going up and fighting, and then achieving it, and then actually still having goals to defend it, things attached to your story. And then when you take yourself out, there's no for real background stories to get upset at, or you don't have no connection to anybody trying to or get back in the game because you were on top and now you're fighting for it again, and I feel like there's no soul connection to other fighters since he's been out so long, and I think that's affected him. Plus his skill too, because it shows that he can compete. But I don't mentally. You just got to be up in there with some dudes who trying to get the championship. And I think he's past his zenith.
Yeah. So, like I said, circle back around to what Amar said. He broke some news to me. So you said he retired after the fight?
Yeah, he took his gloves off and laid them down. Did the old, the tradition, and UFC said, "Screw it, we're not going to let you on the mic." Pretty much.
Do y'all think this is a real retirement, or y'all think it's part of his cringe stick?
I think it's part of his little game that he plays. I think that he wants the UFC to beg him to keep fighting or something. Like, it wasn't a good showing for him, so I could understand if he would have won and then doing that, expecting the UFC to beg him to come back. But I don't think that Dana White's a big fan of Cejudo, and they're not going to come knocking at his door to come back.
And plus being promoted as the gold Olympist, and did very good the first round, but we saw a gold Olympist get dominated in the UFC ring, wrestling wise, for 2 and 3 rounds. So I think that takes a blow to his ego and his image as far as UFC. I don't even think Romero got dominated in his wrestling.
Yeah. like Amar said, I think he just wants the UFC to beg him to come back. Which brings me to another question. Y'all think that Cejudo wasted his prime years in his little retirement? He retired thinking that they were going to beg him to come back last time, and he took 3 years off, and they just let him stay retired, and he came back and lost to Sterling, who's no slouch. Y'all think he wasted his prime in that 3-year retirement that he did?
Yeah, I think he did. I think that his ego got the better of him, and he could have been fighting 1, 2, 3 times a year that whole time, making money, making a name for himself, making himself the person that the UFC begs to come fight. But I think the UFC might have felt slighted when he did that, and that's kind of why they've never really give him a lot of the promotion since then. And then another thing I seen Cejudo post, I can't remember where I seen it, but he posted something about beating the GOAT to become champion, and he was talking about Sterling.
I mean, to go to bantamweight. I mean,
he referred to he beat the bantamweight GOAT, referring to Sterling.
I mean, I don't know if I would argue too much against that, just because Cruz didn't fight often enough and he was always injured. So I mean, I think by default you might have to say Aljamain Sterling is. He rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, but I was a fan of Sterling. But ran into Sean O'Malley. But yeah, you have to be Cruz or Sterling, and then you got Henan Barral that went on that. But I can't remember how much Henan actually defended his title. So yeah, I mean, I guess most people would default with Dominic, but you could throw Sterling's hat into that.
I don't know, man. Barao, I feel like he had the title forever. How long did he have the title?
He had a ridiculous fighting like win streak, but as far as actually having the title during that streak, I know he had the interim and then they upgraded it. I think he might have defended it 3 times max.
He beat Faber for it. He defended it 1, 2, 3. He defended it against Michael McDonald, Eddie Wineland, and Uriah Faber. Lost to TJ Dillashaw.
Yeah, and that was it. So the Cruz didn't fight often enough. And then he didn't do all of it in the UFC. He crossed over from WEC. So I don't know, man. Sterling might have his case for it.
Man.
Bantamweight GOAT. How many times did Cruz defend it?
He was the WEC Bantamweight champ. Let's see. Because I mean, you're right in what you say that Dominic Cruz didn't defend it enough.
Always, but I think he won it back. He won it back too. He beat TJ to get it back, and then lost it again. Or then he beat TJ to get it back, didn't he?
So he won the Bantamweight WEC back in 2010. He defended it a lot of times. He won the Bantamweight in the UFC against Dillashaw, beat Faber, and then he lost it to Cody Garbrandt. So if we're talking just UFC years, maybe you're right. I mean,
it shows how young that division is when you don't have that big of a pool to choose from.
It's a young division, and I mean, the titles changed hands a lot, though. I mean,
yeah,
you're talking Dominic Cruz, TJ Dillashaw, Cody Garbrandt. The list goes on and on.
Yeah, because Cruz won it back from Dillashaw because he never lost the belt because he lost it from being injured, and he defended against a Faber once and then lost it to the Garbrandt.
Yeah,
that's what happened.
Yeah, so the history of the bantamweight title has been Dominic Cruz, Renan Barao, TJ Dillashaw, Dominic Cruz, Cody Garbrandt, TJ Dillashaw, Henry Cejudo, Peter Yan, Aljamain Sterling.
So yeah, well, hey, you when Cejudo made that statement, you like kind of laughed it off, but then once you really think about it, you gotta at least put Sterling in the top 2 at probably like the very least. Like somebody argue Henry Barraro.
Yeah, I mean, and I would rather call Sterling the GOAT than Sean O'Malley. I hope Sean O'Malley loses.
I mean, we'll get into that in a second, but the kid hasn't even defended the title once, so he's got a long way to go before we talk about him. But let's jump into that. Marab got a dominant win against Cejudo, and we pretty much know what's going to happen next for him. He's going to get the winner of Sean O'Malley and Chito Vera. So, of course, once they actually make the fight, I'm guessing it's probably going to be sometime in the fall, maybe even a winter, maybe the last part of the year, or maybe New York or something when they probably make that a fight official. We'll actually predict the fight when it comes to there. But early outlook of that fight, y'all think Marab beats the winner of this fight next month?
I think Rob could beat either one of them.
Okay. Will it be easy, or will he actually work?
He would finish O'Malley easily. I think Vera would give him a little bit better of a fight, but I think it would be very similar to what the Cejudo fight was.
Steve?
Yeah, I think Marab would definitely have it. I wouldn't say it'd be totally easy, but definitely Marab is his wrestling skills, I think, are formidable enough to get those takedowns and win the fight for both fighters, Vera or O'Malley.
Yeah, I think Marab beats both of them, but I don't know. I don't know if I agree with Admire him finishing O'Malley. I think O'Malley will keep him honest with the striking, but I think at the end of the day, he'll do what he has to do, Marab, and he'll get the takedowns on them, and I think he'll probably win against O'Malley like a unanimous decision or something like that. And I don't know what would happen in that Chito Vera fight. I have to come back and think about that one, but if that fight actually ends up happening, but we'll see. But Marab is clearly the number one contender, so it'll be exciting to see how he progresses moving forward. But let's talk about this next fight, fellas. In the welterweight division, we had Ian Machado Gary defeating Jeff Neal by not unanimous decision. He beat him by split decision. So I guess it's a little bit of controversy on that card. So in that first round, a lot of circling around for Gary. He wasn't doing a whole lot. Neal used his striking to get into the clinch, and that ended up being a stalemate for most of the round. And then in round two, not a whole lot going on. I didn't really know who to give that second round to. In round three, more of the same. Whatever big shot Neal landed, he would immediately go for the clinch and then follow up with any combos. So really hard fight to judge. And what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I actually scored this fight for Neal. Real time looking at it. I'd probably need to go back and watch it and see if I still scored the same. For me, Gary did a lot of circling, and even at one point kind of ran away. And the commentary team that night was just praising Ian Gary for creating distance. Oh, he can create distance. Man, he was running. Like, he was not just circling to get out of the way. There was points he was running. And I feel like Jeff Neal landed more shots as I was watching it. As I look at the stats, it doesn't look that way, but I felt like Neal landed more shots. Gary landed a couple good kicks, and then he threw a lot of knees, but there wasn't really any damage or anything. And I don't think a lot of the knees really landed cleanly, or, I think Neal would have been rocked a little more. But, two judges, scored it for Neal, or for Gary, and one scored it for Neal. I mean, it was kind of all over the place for judging. And I think it goes back to kind of what I mentioned earlier. There's, it's supposed to be scored on control and damage. And you can have two fighters have one of each, and you got to figure out what weighs more. I think that Neal had the more control, but I think Gary may have outstruck him just by looking at these numbers.
Yeah, like I said, it was a weird one to judge. What are your thoughts on this one, Steve?
Definitely possibility. May have. I was going for Neal. Of course, he has a pretty good precision, what was that? Straight left, I think he has, and tagging him with it. But for what I wanted him to win, he was upset at me that he wasn't doing enough. Like EJ said, he would do one of those precision shots and clinch up against the fence, and that was upsetting me. So I really and for what it is, yeah, Ian Gary was running away, but he was more active, throwing more shots. But to me, for both fighters, that was more of a sparring fight to me. Sparring point fight, do one shot and close your distance type of fight, or throw your shot and then circle around. It can stall out a fight a lot. I'm not too disappointed with the decision if it went either other way.
Yeah, like neither fighter should be mad at the result. Of course, Gary won because he won it, but Neil can't be too disappointed because it could have went every way. So it's not like, of course, he probably felt like he won the fight, but it's not like he got robbed or anything. It was a toss up, but I don't know. I wasn't that entertained by it, but Gary, I guess, did what he needed to do to win, and the goal of combat sports is to hit and not get hit. So Gary didn't take a whole lot of damage, but Gary remains undefeated, and this is clearly a guy that the UFC is trying to push. He jumped from the 10th spot to the 6th spot as far as the rankings. Neil dropped down the number from 8 to number 9. So what do y'all think is up next for Gary? Y'all throw him to the wolves of the top 5, or y'all think he should probably face someone in that 10 to 7 range?
Yeah, I mean, you can tell the UFC's pumping him, jumping up that much after a win and kind of backing the other guys down. But I like his call out after his fight, calling out Colby Covington. I like that fight. It gives him somebody in the top 5. Gary's not well liked by a lot of people. He's loved by a lot of people. Same with Colby. You're going to have a big shit talking contest leading up to it. And I mean, a lot of people are going to be happy at either one of those losing. So I like it.
Steve?
You said which one's going to be the good guy out of that? Those two. And that fight is presented. I think that was
Gary.
Oh yeah. Especially Covington. I mean, especially with Ian Gary, just gives everybody ammo to talk about him. But definitely that'd be an exciting fight and an exciting call out. I think he's knocking on which now Colby is top 5 gatekeeper. So, yeah, I think that'd be an excellent fight to do.
I don't know, man. I want to see Colby fight. Who do I want to see him fight? I don't know if I want to see him fight Gary. Maybe I feel like Colby should get like a top 3 guy.
But Usman's already beat Colby. Muhammad's tied up. Gilbert Burns has a fight coming up, and the only other one up there is Shavkat. And I think doesn't he have a fight coming up?
I just fought. Give him Shavkat.
Yeah, but if Colby wins that, then he basically gets a title fight.
I mean, not necessarily, especially if Edwards is able to keep the belt. I don't know. I just think Gary, stylistically, I don't know. Gary might have trouble with Colby. I don't know.
But if it's the same Colby that shows up his last fight, Gary's just going to pick him apart on the feet.
You think so?
That last Colby Covington fight was not his normal. Like, I don't know. I mean, I would hope Colby goes back to the takedowns and, the grinder. But I don't know. I think that's the only move to really make, though.
Yeah.
I don't want to see Colby go against anybody else behind him, like Stephen Thompson, Jeff Neal. I don't want to see that.
What about What about Colby Covington and Hamzat Chimaev?
That I would watch for sure.
That's what I think he should face next.
But I don't think Chimaev can make 170.
Yeah, that is true. That's why he went up the middleweight.
I would like to see if Colby would go up. I'd like to see him go up and fight him at 185.
Yeah, but then Dana White said Hamzat can never fight at welterweight again after he missed it. That whole debacle, the Diaz debacle.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. Like you said, the Colby fight, that would definitely elevate Gary to the level that they're trying to elevate him up to. But I just think they should, because he's supposed to fight. I want to say, because maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. I want to say they had him lined up against Stephen Thompson at one point, and maybe the fight fell through, or maybe they were trying to get that fight to happen.
Not sure.
I think that's what I would want to see next. But I think the way they're positioning Gary, they want him to fight upward now. I don't know if they'll have him fight backward. And Thompson is number 8, but I think that fight makes sense. Number 6 or 8, have it headline a fight night card. Maybe have it in person and not like an Apex. Have them on the road with that one.
Maybe they're waiting to see, because Gilbert Burns fights on 299. Maybe they're waiting to see what happens with that and that Montalera.
Yeah, Gilbert Burns is like the ultimate gatekeeper right now. Like, I don't see him getting a title shot soon, but he's like number 4. Obviously, he's still ranked pretty highly, so he's like the ultimate gatekeeper. But we'll see, man, what happens with the kid. I wasn't that impressed by it, but hey.
I, for the hype that this guy had, I was not that impressed.
Yeah, but at this point, it's either sink or swim, right?
Yeah.
So we'll keep an eye out on what happens with that. Let's talk about this co-main event, fellas. In the middleweight division, we had Robert the Reaper Whittaker defeating Paulo Costa by unanimous decision. So about halfway through that first round, the volume started to pick up, and Whittaker started landing some pretty big shots, but Costa had some good counters. Whittaker was eating Costa's leg up, but then with about 10 seconds left, Costa hit that spinning kick, had him close to being finished. I mean, he was hurt really bad, maybe not close to being finished, but like he had him in the deep waters and he was in trouble. Like, if he had more time, he may have been able to get him out of there. But then in the second round, it looked like Whittaker pretty much recovered from that late onslaught by Costa, and Whittaker did a good job of mixing it up with the hook combos and the leg kicks. And about 2 minutes into that round, he took that accidental thumb to the eye. I don't think it affected him too much. It seems like he was able to recover from it. But then he went back to work with those combos. And then Costa kept trying to sneak those head kicks in, man. He was like swift with him, but he just couldn't catch him again with it. And then in the third round, both guys were going at it. They were both landing pretty good shots. And about halfway through the round, you could tell both of them were kind of gassed. And I think Whittaker was able to stay slightly busier and was able to take that round. What were your thoughts on this fight, Admire?
Yeah, I think the leg kicks from Whittaker was, the big game changer. This one, he opened up with it. By the end of the first round, Costa had a bunch of welts on his legs. It kind of slowed him down, but that spinning back kick was awesome, man. And I was like, oh shit, if that would have happened like 20 seconds earlier, we might have had a different fight. Whittaker's fights are still fresh in my mind because I went back to watch him versus DDP for the last card, and I noticed that Whittaker, man, he opens himself up a lot when he throws his strikes. He kind of leaves himself open, and that's how DDP caught him. And I think Costa had, a lot of luck catching him right, on the counters. Whittaker's got to change that because the guys up there in that top level are going to just piece him up every time he does that. He's, still top fighter for sure, but he opens up a lot of risk. And I'll have to go back and watch some of his older fights to see if that's something that he's always done. But it seems like he's really dropping his hands and leaving himself open when he throws the big lefts and rights.
Yeah, I agree with that. Steve.
Yeah, Whitaker came through with this win, but with Whitaker, especially when he fights somebody high level, especially striking, because that's what he mostly deals with and doesn't too much go for takedowns. He will if he have to, but it's more if it's engaged. I think Whitaker only gets himself in trouble if he gets behind or is receiving damage. And then when he is behind, which is number one go-to thing, is the blitz. I think the blitz when he's behind, it's definitely what gets him in trouble to get knocked out. Same with DDP, where urgency occurs, and same with Israel. He was getting behind and left himself open.
Yeah, we saw what Israel did with him the first fight, but the second fight he did better. So it seems like he was able to adjust a little bit and make some improvements. But like you said, like he does have those holes though that you think that fighters would take a little bit more advantage of. But I don't know. He's just like one of those fighters that just fights off a heart. Seems like sometimes he might throw the technical stuff out the window and just go out there and bite on his mouth guard and get the win by any means necessary. But I want to talk a little bit about the judging. So 2 judges had it 29-28, and 1 judge had it 30-27. I didn't go back and look how they broke it down, but I think clearly we know 2 judges probably had Costa winning that first round, and 1 judge had Whitaker winning that first round. So do y'all agree with the 2 judges that had Costa winning that first round? Y'all think him almost finishing only with like 10 seconds left was able to have him steal that round?
That's the hard part about judging. I think Whitaker won round 1. That's just me, based on his control, his striking, strikes landed, everything. But I think too many judges use what's more recent. If you go to score that round 1, the thing that you just saw was Costa landing that spinning back kick, and that makes the bigger impression than what Whitaker did 4 minutes and 30 seconds before that. So, I mean, I can't blame him for that, but I can. I don't. I think we're coming up to UFC 300. The sport's always evolving. I think the judging needs to evolve.
Yeah, Steve, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's because it can be scenario to where I would just say not to do it at all as far as like Whitaker, or what if it was a long stretch he was winning that round and got rocked, or if it was close, but to be considered he lost and it's pretty much did a pretty good job that whole round, and for a last 10-second rock, that's kind of hard to give that to somebody just because of a rock at the end of a round.
Yeah, I mean, I get your point, Admire, going back to what you said about the judging, but this is like a gray area with this one, because like I'm leaning towards Whitaker winning that round, but we know that the judging criteria has kind of changed over the past 2 years, and they've been focusing more so on damage. So I don't know. I don't really know what the answer would be to that. Who won that round? Because if you're looking at it like a real fight, like who was hurt and who wasn't at the end of the round,
right? Or even if you look at it like a race, just because somebody's winning the race, most of the race, whoever crosses that finish line first. So I see it that way.
Yeah,
it's It's hard. You know, do they need to bring in a 10-10 round when it's something like that, when you can make an argument for both?
I mean, they can. I don't know why they don't utilize it more. They have the ability to make it a 10-10 round. I think they should probably try to utilize that a little bit more instead of, because this isn't karate. This isn't point fighting. So even though Whitaker, if you looked at the stats, I think he had more significant strikes than cost of that round, but it's not karate point fighting. So you gotta take damage as a factor, and it's too hard to call, man. Like you said, like I wouldn't be mad if it was just like a 10-10 round with that one. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have an
I mean,
answer.
eventually, I think, not anytime right away. I think eventually what you're going to see is some kind of AI computerized judging that scores the fight as it's happening, live scoring. And, they get a point for this and a point for this. Or, as the fight is live, one person gets a point as they're leading, but if the other person does something, that point moves to them. Have the judges show us why they're scoring that, not just I'm going to score this based on what I remember from that last 5 minutes. If you can see how they're thinking throughout, it would make a lot more sense, and it could be corrected, because right now you can't correct it.
I'm with you with live scoring. That's been an argument over the past decade, basically, whether or not they should bring live scoring in, because I think some states do it, like a random state like Montana or something does like the live scoring, where the judges have to reveal their scores at the end of the round. But I don't know about the AI, because I don't think AI could like really take into account of damage and whatnot. So I get it, like the concept of just trying to be as precise as you can, but I think you do still need some human element to it. But I'm down for live scoring, and Dana White's gripe against that is he's saying that fighters will take off the third round if they know they're up, but they've done studies and show that's not the case. That I think more finishes have been happening in the states that actually do live scoring. So
And
you can throw it out the window. Go ahead.
yeah, and I mean, in a way, there kind of is live scoring with DraftKings on there now, showing you live odds. You can tell who's winning the fights. You can see how odds makers are scoring the fights, and those guys are usually right.
We can, but the fighters really can't unless they have their corner man have their phone in their hand, I guess.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, it's just an analogy, but I mean, it's kind of live scored that way. So I don't know. I would like to see it get to that and take out a lot of the questions that we always debate. How do you score this? By striking, by control? I can't remember which fight it was we watched a couple months ago. There was a guy that got taken down and he was on bottom, and he was throwing nothing but strikes from the bottom, just eating the guy on top up. Well, if you score by who was in control, the guy on top was in control. The guy on bottom was busy landing tons more strikes. Wish I could remember who it was, but I remember we talked about it.
Yeah, and that fight that we saw, I think the guy on the bottom ended up winning because the guy on top wasn't doing anything. I can't remember
Right.
off the top of my head.
Right, but certain judges in certain states might not have scored it that way. So live scoring would make it better, instead of thinking, oh, this guy on bottom is busy, I'm giving him a point, would be the better way than, okay, in the last 5 minutes, all I remember is that guy was on top, the guy on bottom landed a few strikes, I'm going to give it to the guy that was on top. Like, it would change a lot of things just going to live.
Yeah, and then if you think about it, all other major sports in our country have live scoring. Like, what if you were in hockey and you didn't know you were down by 2 goals until like the last 2 minutes of the game? You're like, oh shit! Like, yeah, that doesn't make sense not to have live scoring. I don't see why they don't implement it in combat sports as well. But what are your thoughts, Steve?
Yeah, I could say they could. Hasn't there been talk about Joe Rogan or he been talking about implementing a new point system?
What was his thoughts on that?
I can't remember exactly. I want to say not exactly scoring fights off of 10 points. if you see a case in that, I think he was talking about that, or
To not having a 10-point system.
yeah, since it's mostly, I guess, going. I think he's something off of boxing. It's a boxing system mostly, the 10-point system, more than its own system itself. Since it's
Then
MMA consisted of more to score off of.
Didn't what was the pride rules? Didn't they like the way they scored it was like a totality of the fight instead of by round? If I'm not mistaken.
It was different.
Yeah, they didn't do like the 10-point must system, if I'm not mistaken, with pride. I don't know if you could do a quick Google, admire, but I mean, yeah, like Steve, you saying that it's not boxing, and you got a whole lot more elements to the MMA game. And you got takedowns and what you actually do with the takedowns and submission attempts. Do you give points for submission attempt? So I don't know.
Yeah, for Pride, they judge the entire fight, not by round.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe go to that, but I'm sure some detractors that will have some complaints about that too. So at the end of the day, it's never a way to please everyone. But
yeah, I do like the Pride yellow cards too for stalling.
Oh yeah.
I wish, you know, if they would bring that in, you'd have more exciting fights, more active fighters, or even the guys that try to coast in the third round when they know they're up. You know, if you say, "Hey, man, we're taking a point from you in the last round," you might think it's tied now. So, I mean, I think that pushes the action a little more.
Hey, and that's like the solution to Dana's White reasoning. People might try to take breaks. If you have that implemented in it, and you would assure that would happen. So I think they should bring in live scoring, so we can see what's actually, the fighters can see what's actually happening in the fights and see how these judges are scoring it. But I think we're a long way from that, but we'll see what happens. But this is a big win for Whitaker. Before I get into him, though, where does Costa go from here? Because Costa took a long break off. He's a brash guy. He ruffles feathers, but he took the L. So I don't know where does he go from here.
I mean, he's still number 7, but I don't think the UFC wants to put too much behind him just because of the character that he plays. I mean, I could see him going back up top, you know, Hermanson, somebody like that, Paul Craig, Chris Curtis, you know, kind of move Costa back a little bit. You know, he was out for quite a while and then, you know, comes in. It's not that he put on a bad fight, but he's not ready for the top 5 guys.
He only dropped a spot too. So you're thinking like he should get like the 12 to 9 range, I guess. You said Paul Craig. I heard you mention him.
Yeah, somebody like that. I mean, Costa's lost 3 of his last 4. He's only beat Luke Rockhold, which not a big win. You know, Costa was on a tear for a while, beat Romero, Hendricks, Uriah Hall, but I think he needs to, you know, earn it.
That Hendricks fight, I don't even remember Hendricks still being in the UFC at that point. That happened in 2017, but I guess he got the win. But like I said, he only dropped 1 spot. Hamzat, I think Hamzat is ranked lower just because he hasn't fought in this division. Why not pair those 2 up?
I'm with it. I think that'd be a good fight for both of them. I mean, it's a big step up in competition for Chimaev. If Costa beats him, I mean, that kind of puts Costa back on the map, like beating a guy that's, you know, really feared across the whole, you know, division. So, I mean, I'm definitely with that fight.
Steve, what do you think is next for Costa?
I think as far as like just keeping him in the best position he can be, Hazmat definitely. They have background, they have a background story, they have a beef already. I think but where's Hamzat? Where is he ranked.
He's number 11 in the middleweight division. I mean,
Oh yeah.
back when he was at welterweight, he was in the top 2, but he's not ranked there anymore. So I guess he's fully implanted in that middleweight division and fully committed to it. So
definitely run that Paulo Costa fight. I think it was just, taking these long breaks and then coming back to having these duds lately and losing. I don't like that. I say feed him to the dogs and let Hazmat earn his keep based off of having actual past beef with him.
yeah, I say run it. But where's Whitaker go from here, though? He's pretty much stuck between a rock and a hard place at kind of gatekeeper status now. He just lost to DDP in his last fight. He lost to Adesanya twice. I'm sure Adesanya is probably going to get the first crack at DDP. Has he faced Strickland yet?
That's what I was just looking for. No, they haven't fought. That's the only fight to make.
Well, run that.
Yeah.
I don't see who else you put him against at this point. You run those two. I guess that's the consensus. Y'all think he, I guess, runs against Strickland?
Yeah, for sure. The only other option is to put him against Cannonier again.
Nah.
I mean, Cannonier, I feel like he gets looked over a lot because he's kind of fought everybody and he's lost to a lot of those top guys. So Cannonier gets looked over a lot, but I mean, he's up there, so he deserves to get somebody.
I mean, they did fight in 2020, so it's 3.5 years now. But still, like, I only want to see you run it back if it's like maybe some beef. If it's not a title fight, if it's like a rematch with not a title involved, it has to make sense. And I mean, people wouldn't complain if they ran it back, but if I'm Whitaker, why would I want to run it back at this point?
Yeah, I mean, and like we just said, Strickland and Whitaker have never fought. They're like, it's the only one that makes sense. It makes the most sense.
Yeah, and like we talked about on the last post show we did, a lot of people were crying about Strickland getting an immediate rematch, and I said no. But you have him face Robert Whitaker, get a win. I wouldn't be opposed to him getting a title shot after that. And if Whitaker wins, I wouldn't be opposed with him getting a rematch against DDP. But if somehow Adesanya sneaks back in and gets a win over DDP and Whitaker beats Strickland, I think he's fucked in. I think he's still between a rock and a hard place. I don't think they run that back for a third time.
Yeah.
So for Whitaker's sake, I think he probably wants to bet that DDP wins, or hoping that DDP wins, because I don't know if they'll run him and Adesanya back again. I don't know. So Steve, you agree that probably should be Strickland and Whitaker next?
Definitely. It's only reasonable combination that hasn't happened yet.
That'd be interesting stylistically, because we all know Strickland isn't a one punch knockout guy. Neither is Whitaker. Whitaker's more so like a volume dude. You don't really see him sleep people like that. I don't know how that fight would go down, actually. I like to see early odds on that one.
That's why it's interesting.
Yeah, I would like to see like an early. I feel like that'd be like a push as far as like the odds go. A pick them, but we're jumping way ahead because Whitaker just fought, so we'll keep an eye out on what happens with him next. But let's finally get into this main event, fellas. For the UFC Featherweight Championship, we had Ilya Topuria defeating Alexander the Great Volkanovski KO. So Topuria was mixing it a lot in the first round. He's mixing it up with the leg kicks and throwing those 1-2 combos. And I say Volk was able to pick it up with like the last 2 minutes of the round. I gave the round to Tapiria, but the judges didn't agree with me. Yeah, I guess if you look at the significant strikes, they say Volk outlanded them, but I watched it. At round twice, and I don't know. I think I still maybe had Tapiria edging him out, but what do I know? Round two, that's when things started to pick up. Tapiria was the one moving forward, but Volk was using that jab and those leg kicks to kind of keep him honest and fend him off somewhat. And he did that well for the first 3.5 minutes until he didn't. Tapiria caught him with that right hook and a few punches before that, but the right hook was the one that caught him, and he was able to make Volkanovski go night-night. And we have a new featherweight champion representing Georgia and Spain. What do y'all think about this fight? I'll start with you, Admire.
It was good. I mean, it was good all the way through. They both had their moments and stuff. I feel like for the finish of it, it really reminded me of the last fight that Volkanovski had and got knocked out. It's kind of like that right kind of snuck around and came out of nowhere, just like that head kick did when he got knocked out last. This one, it started with the left, but I think the one that was a right that came around his arm is the one that really did the most damage. I think he just got caught again. Like, I don't know if it's his peripheral isn't there anymore or he's losing it, but it's not like he was just getting outclassed all the way around. He just got caught again.
Yeah. Steve?
Yeah, I think this is a fight to where he fought not just a striker, a very solid boxer. And for Volk's size, I was looking at both of the fighters, and I see Ela, he has a bigger frame size than Volk, so that definitely helped him. And I saw Volk's still sturdiness of his skills, flicking him off with the jab and using those legs kicks. But the previous fight with Islam and his knockout, and then seeing this knockout, I don't think he can stand for what his height he was anymore, because this was an actual devastating knockout. And figuring the Volk we know who he is, we figured he would do at least come back or do a more movement to utilize his wrestling, to which obviously I think he would have did it in the first round or some parts in the seconds if he could. I think Volk has been figured out through the times as he's had to defend his belt as champion, and I think maybe it's his time. And plus, he's getting older.
Yeah, you definitely make some good points. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They have a statistic saying that I think the percentage of fighters that win in title fights, 35 and up, it's low. It's like in the 10 to 15%.
Oh, it's lower than that. They showed it on the TV during the fight that fighters over 35 are 2-20 in title fights. So it's like, what is that? 10%. That they have a 10% chance of winning. Like, it's not good at all.
I saw that statistic too, and then I was thinking about it. Is that true though? Because I thought of more than two off the top of my head. Maybe it's over a certain year. Didn't Silva win some fights past 35? Bisbing, didn't he win the belt past 35? Glover Teixeira.
I'm sure GSP, when he beat Bisbing, was over 35. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about that too. I was
Randy Couture.
Yeah, Randy Couture. I'm sure. I'm pretty sure Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell were over 35.
I don't know about those guys. They age faster than what we remember. They were a little younger, but all the other guys. But I saw the statistic. That's why I brought it up, because I saw the statistic you're talking about, like only like 2 or something like that. But maybe is it past a certain year or something? But either way, the percentage of guys 35 and up it's not high. So y'all think that age just caught up with Volkanovski, or do y'all think he just didn't take enough time in between the Makachev fight?
I don't know. I mean, he still looked good out there. And I mean, I'll stand by it. I think that he just got hit with something he didn't see coming. But the why didn't he see it coming is the thing. It could be like Steve said, it could be that people have figured him out. I personally think he's kind of fell in love with the knockout and the stand-up and hasn't utilized his wrestling as much as he should. I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I don't think he should give up yet. I think he should, even though it's a knockout, he's been at the top for a while. He did the UFC a favor stepping in and, getting knocked out last time. I think he should get a rematch. And then we decide where he goes from there.
I'm gonna put that thought that you just said on pause, but I'm gonna go to Steve. You think he just got old, or he should have just took more time off in between those Makachev fights?
I think definitely both. I think he should have took time off, but think he's having pride to try to not hold up the featherweight division. I think he tried to speed up. Plus, going to these press conferences, which is nothing wrong, just embracing the shits and giggles of people, but going to the press conference as an old man. I mean, shit, he said it himself.
That didn't age well.
No, I didn't. No, Eli came in there serious.
But what about that press conference when he came in as an old man? You gonna add on to that, Steve?
Oh yeah, I came in there in the press conference was embracing the old man energy, and he got knocked out like an old man. I mean, Sarah was pretty damn sharp, and not saying Volk looked bad, but it's like especially in round 2, and this is a championship fight. I mean, you always look good until in round 2 you get knocked out, and it's like, well, was he playing with you? I mean, it was inevitable because Volk looked good, but I mean, was that really how good he was? I mean, he just got knocked out, so it's like we're sitting here questioning now, is he's good enough? So, and if he would have won, we wouldn't be talking about it, and he would have got that loss back from Islam. But like you said earlier, those two back-to-back, and this one, he got knocked out cold. So I don't see him coming back anytime soon good.
So going back to your thought, Admire, you were saying that you think he should get an immediate rematch. I think he deserves an immediate rematch, but I don't think that he should take an immediate rematch because I don't know if I see it going down any differently. I think, like I said, he's probably the greatest featherweight UFC history. But if you jump back in an immediate rematch, you're going against a young lion like Capiria. The results may stay the same. So you definitely have pride, of course. But if I were him, I might want to take a warm-up match in between them. Take like somebody in the top 5 just in case, because that's rough, man. Fighting at that high level for so long. I definitely think he deserves it. And of course, the UFC will probably hang that over him, dangle that carrot, so to speak, above his head to take that immediate rematch. But if you're him, you don't think he should probably maybe take a year off? It's maybe an immediate rematch for him, but maybe have Topuria face the guy in between.
Yeah, he probably needs a good break. I don't want to take anything from Topuria. He fought a great fight and looked amazing. I mean, the way he strung together that last sequence with the precision, and he was feisty going in after it. I think Topuria is going to be at the top for a while, man. For Volkanovski, I think he should take the year off and just kind of let the division kind of shake out a little bit. There's a lot of fights booked for those guys in the featherweight. Kind of see who lands where. He's beat most of them already, so a lot of them you don't really want to see the run back. I think he's fought Max Holloway 2-3 times. I know he's fought Rodriguez. He's fought Ortega. Give a chance for some guys to move up there in the top 5 and fight them once they get into the top 5. And I want him to get the immediate rematch, but I don't. I think he needs to get confidence back with a win and kind of figure out where he stands. So maybe somebody, give Josh Emmett a chance to move up in the top 5. And then if he pulls off a win, fight Josh Emmett.
I agree with that. Before we get into Superior's projection, I mean, it's kind of an end of an era. Volkanovski, long-term champion. So it's probably be an easy question to answer. Is he, I guess, the consensus GOAT of the featherweight division, hands down? The only person that you could maybe throw in there is a Jose Aldo. So y'all think Volkanovski is the GOAT of the division?
I do. Personally, I think he is. But, I mean, just from what I've seen from Topuria, I think he has a chance of doing it. I know it's real early. He just got the belt, but
way too early.
but from what I'm not going to call him the GOAT now, but I think he has the makings of what it takes to become.
Yeah. Steve, what do you think? You think Volkanovski is the GOAT of the featherweight? Like I said, the only person you could maybe throw in there is Jose Aldo.
Yeah, I mean his credentials speak it. Jose Aldo, he has the shock factor, the coolness, the not the double knees, flying knees and stuff like that. And Jose Aldo's has credentials too, but Volkanovski just got it from pure wins. I mean, you can't deny it. But as far as a stylistic one, which not saying that Volkanovski didn't pull off beautiful wins, but this isn't a stylistic champion to me. And I think it's about time and for ready to see which Tapera looks is going to look like a champion that has highlights, like Israel Adesanya, a few of these champions that have highlight wins. Alex Pereira, I think Tapera is definitely one of those to get these knockouts for the division he's in.
I think if my calculation is right, I think Aldo defended his 9 times and Volkanovski defended 6.
Yeah. And I was about to say, I think we still got to see what Volkanovski does after this before we throw out our opinions completely on that topic, because what I think hurt Aldo was that after he lost the belt, he kind of lingered around and took some L's after that, and then he went down to bantamweight and took some L's there. I think we have recency, bias as far as like we saw the L's that he was taking after his initial run. But if you like Admire saying, if you go back and look at it, Aldo went on a hell of a run. And me personally, stylistically, I was a fan of Aldo more so than Volkanovski, but you can't sneeze at what either one of those guys did in the octagon. And then, like, you still got to put in the factor the head-to-head. I mean, Volkanovski beat Aldo, even though it's pretty much Aldo past his prime. Even though Aldo, he was like 33 at the time. If you think about it in any other circumstances, he's still a young guy, but took a lot of wear and tear in that cage. Beat Holloway 3 times, beat Ortega, beat Korean Zombie, beat Yair Rodriguez in between those Makhachev fights. So that's a pretty sturdy resume. So I mean, like when I met Steve, like Steve, you could like vouch for this. I was never like a huge fan of Volkanovski. Like his style was like, I was never really a fan of his style. He was one of those guys that does everything well, but never had anything really flashy. Like he would finish guys by like TKO, but like nothing really jumped off the pages for me. But like once he beat Holloway 3 times, like I can't deny how great this guy was. And so my hat goes off to him. But looking at Tapiria, like Admire said, I mean, I like his style a lot better than Volkanovski. He's a one-punch knockout type of guy, and he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. So I'll ask y'all this. Y'all think there's a chance for him to reach for that brass ring, so to speak, and maybe be a face of the UFC in the future?
I think so. I think he has all the tools to do it. Like you mentioned, he's got a black belt, but all we seen the other night was this crisp boxing and striking. So that tells me that, I mean, he's not a one-trick pony, that he can handle himself anywhere that the fight goes, and he can be the one to dictate it. So I think that he's going to be around for a while, and I think that the UFC is going to put a lot behind him.
I mean, like you said, that Chris Boskin and a few fights ago, this was late 2022, you got a arm triangle over Bryce Mitchell, so you know the grappling is there. What are your thoughts, Steve? You think he could be the face of the company or one of them in the future?
As far as who?
Ilya Tapiria.
Definitely, if he keeps on winning, from what I remember, he's a good spokesperson too on the mic, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's like trilingual, or I know he speaks multiple languages.
Definitely. This I think people just still, I think probably have to wrap their heads around this wins, because I think even in the tabloids, people just doubted him and just thought he was a youngster coming up, not respecting a veteran. And I think once people grasp and see, like, okay, man, he just proved a point. I think I definitely see him being a face of UFC, and especially if you start putting these highlights behind him too, and getting a little resume.
Yeah, the only thing is some people are still weird about the lower weight divisions as far as like marketability. Of course, Conor was able to break that mold, and then even another sport, Floyd was. But if you're not bigger, sometimes you can't draw as many eyes as some of the higher weight classes. But I mean, internationally, definitely, I think he could push for it, be maybe not the face of the UFC, but one of them, like a top 3 go-to guy when you want to sell a big fight if they market him well. I mean, for some reason, we haven't really seen a fighter break that mold of going in the mainstream of based on just your fight prowess since GSP and Silva. I don't know why. Is it a UFC thing, or is it our generation short attention span type things? Because it's a lot of fighters where they should probably be bigger stars of what they are based on how good they are fighting. But I think definitely this is UFC's fault a little bit, the way they marketed it. All the fighters look the same, and they kind of put a muzzle, unless you're Sean Strickland, can say whatever you want, but I feel like they put a muzzle on a lot of what the fighters could do and whatnot. But I don't know, like, y'all think we might still see the day where we see a fighter blow up as like a mainstream individual based on just the fighting style? Like I said, we haven't really seen it since like GSP and Silva.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're 100% correct. Like, a lot of these fighters that we know that are great fighters fly under the mainstream radar. So, like, we're talking about Taporia, but if you talk about Makachev, or Kazmat, or, kind of any of the Dagestani fighters, we know they're all top fighters, but they're not a household name, or they're not going to sell the average person a pay-per-view, even though they're, all in the pound for pound talks, but the loud guys are the ones that have the face, the Sean O'Malley's, Sean Strickland. Conor McGregor is another one. You know, Conor McGregor hasn't fought in how many years, hasn't won a fight in how many years, but could come in right now and sell over 1 million pay-per-views and is a household name and doesn't have half the skills as a lot of these guys. So I would like to see it back to that, you know, GSP, my favorite fighter of all time, you know, just because he was humble and well-versed in every skill set that he had. You know, I like seeing fighters like that. I don't need the hype to sell a fight.
Even with like a John Jones before, like he kind of switched it up later on and was a little bit more boisterous. But when he like really kind of blew up, he was basically just known for his fighting before he started getting into trouble and all that. And then, like I guess he was probably like the last person, but a little bit before him, Sylvan, like you said, GSP. I don't know, man. You'd like to see it go back to that, but I don't know. Go ahead.
What I don't like though is when fighters feel like they have to become that to sell fights. Like perfect example is DC. When he was always a quiet, humble guy coming up through the other promotion when he first got in the UFC, but then he just got into his own head that he should be a shit talker and all that. And it was cringy at best. Like a fighter shouldn't have to put on a show and be a loudmouth and talk shit to get the views or the attention or the push.
Yeah, he shouldn't, but I feel like that's just the times that we're in. I don't know. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah. As far as like the promotion of a fighter.
No, we're just saying, like, are the days of fighters crossing over into like the mainstream media over? Because we hadn't really seen it since like the GSP, Silva, and then even maybe the John Jones era when he first started really getting going.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. Sort of like what they say about boxing. I mean, back in those days, and maybe the divisions weren't so deep, but the fighters fought the best fighters. And sort of now you kind of have a choice of fighters choosing kind of if they want to take a fight up in ranks or not, or fighters being protected by the industry. Like some say, Sean O'Malley did, and other fighters. I think it definitely the old school days are over. Nothing like the old school days, because it's I think we even talked about it before, how they got all these fighters scattered out, and how I think we even talked about how they could even cut down the roster so we can siphon a little bit about to get these best fighters on there instead of had them spread across. I definitely think it's different from those old days, and to get a household name, because I mean, if you have a more parameter, small density of fighters, you're more able to see highlights. Fighters got famous like Vitor Belfort and Anderson Silva. You can get famous off a highlight of like, oh my God, I haven't seen that before. When's the last time we've seen one of those? A significant one I remember is Joaquin Buckley, that spinning karate back kick on I can't even know his name, but you can get famous off that. I mean, you don't even see that too much. And maybe because there's straight up practitioners. I guess there's a more mixture of now, but I mean, you figure that you maybe see more stuff, but I don't know. But definitely it's different, the module of back in the day and today.
Yeah, I mean, I think the days of fighters getting over, so to speak, just purely based off their fighting is over. But I would like to see a combination of both, though. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. People able to talk people into the building and getting over off of just talking like a McGregor and the mold of McGregor. But he actually did fight a little bit before he got rich to actually back it up. And I just think it'd be good for the landscape of MMA to have a combination of both. Have fighters being able to sell just off their fighting, but then have the guys that'll talk you into the building and are, more boisterous with the
Right.
microphone.
Yeah, I mean, because the UFC is going to push the louder fighters with more controversy around them, just like Sean Strickland fighting DDP in the crowd. They use that to push the fight. They use McGregor attacking the bus to push the fight. If you got a guy like Taporia who's very well mannered and not, crazy like that, they don't have the highlights to put in the promos to put on TV. So, they kind of eat it up.
Yeah, definitely. And remember with Conor and Habib, they swore what he did against him with the dollies and stuff was despicable, but then they ended up putting in the promo to sell the fight. Ended up selling 2.4 million, highest pay-per-view bought in the history of the company. But I'm looking at the chart right now, and pretty much validate what we've been talking about. The last, because they only got 40 fights on there. I'm looking at the history of like the pay-per-views and buys, and I sorted it in chronologically. And the last fight they have on here is from 2021, and that was the Poirier McGregor fight, and that sold 1.8 million, and that was all the way back in July of 2021. So I don't know, like maybe they're just valuing that ESPN contract, and they know they're gonna get paid regardless, and whatever they sell with the pay-per-views are icing on the cake, which I think is a terrible business model to go by. But what I know, I'm not in the board, so maybe they found their sweet spot. But even with this list, Blachowicz and Adesanya, like that, they pulled a decent number. They had 800 pay-per-view buys. That's pretty good. But the Usman and Covington fights, both the 1 and 2 had 700,000 pay-per-view buys. So clearly McGregor's still a needle mover. Him and the Cowboy fight, which they didn't really talk trash back and forth. That's a 1.3. So I don't know, for some reason McGregor still moves the needle as far as buys. But I mean, as far as Superior goes, like he's got the tools to become a star. It's just, I think it's UFC's job to like try to push him, like have him go on First Take and talk nonsense with Stephen A. Smith. Y'all are with ESPN. I feel like they don't take advantage of that enough, and have them on I don't know what's the ABC morning show, whatever they have, Good Day America or whatever.
Something like that.
Yeah, something that anybody over the age of 40 doesn't really watch. I mean, under the age of 40 doesn't really watch. But have like our parents' generation, expose them to those people, and chip away at it, hit all the demographics. But what do I know? Or I'd be hired by the UFC. But Superior, I think he might be the next guy up, but it's no telling. Anything can happen in MMA. So, what do y'all think they match him up with in the immediate future as far as him defending that title?
Man, we got Max Holloway there, number 2, but
Ooh. I mean, this would be the moment where you pull a trigger because they weren't going to match him up against Volkanovski, and he's like I don't want to disrespect him and call him a gatekeeper, but he's almost been regulated by default to like the ultimate gatekeeper just because he lost to Volkanovski so many times. But do you pull a trigger on him and Holloway? You think that should happen, Amar?
If Holloway beats Gaethje for the BMF title, then I say okay. But if Holloway loses this one, I don't know, man. I think it might be time. I don't know. He can still hang, but then he really gets that gatekeeper status. There's really not a lot left that I want to see up there. That's why I was kind of saying Volkanovski should let the featherweight division kind of shake out, let some other people get some movement, because I don't know that I want to see Topuria fight Rodriguez, Ortega, Evlov. I don't know.
I mean, he hasn't faced those guys yet, so why not run it with all of those guys?
Just because those guys have kind of lost to the other ones up top. I know MMA math don't work, but
Mhm.
I don't see any of the guys I named, those three, Rodriguez, Ortega, Evlov. I don't see them bringing anything to the Taporia fight that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, they definitely got options. I don't know, Steve. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel like those fighters, like you said, lost to each other or lost very recently to even earn a title shot, which usually, this ain't heavyweight or the women's division where there's not too many to circulate. And what early 2000s, not early 2000s, late 2000s, and like I said, everybody's fought everybody, and it seems like like you
Yeah,
said, Max Holloway.
everybody's fought everybody, but Superior still hasn't fought a lot of those guys that have been fighting each other. So
It seems like I wouldn't want them to be pushed up like have 2 or 3 fights where Tapera had how many streak a fight to get up there, and others before him had to get a streak. And it just wouldn't seem right. These other fighters, although opportunity is opportunity, uh, some of these fighters don't even fight um, consistent enough. Brian Ortega, I mean, he's been sitting out for a long time. Uh, I would say one of the few people is Max Holloway, but he's got a fight up, and it's he had to be the back burner. Crazy enough, because the person that beat him 2-3 times, you're just forced to do that. So I think I think we have to sit back and watch these fights and see what happens.
Wouldn't it be crazy if Gaethje got injured and they put in Taporia against Holloway at 300?
is that
That'd
where
be
those two fighting at?
Yeah, they're doing the BMF fight, right?
Yeah, you're right. That would be crazy. I mean, I don't think he took much damage. That'd be a pretty quick turnaround. I mean, as far as promoting, that would be pretty silly of him. Just what if Holloway beats him? But yeah, knowing Dana White, I could see them maybe trying to rush him back for that, just because he's pretty young and pretty fresh off of that win. I mean, I think you got to kind of build up towards that though. But I wouldn't be surprised if Holloway gets in there next. I mean, he's got
That's what
two.
I'm saying. If he gets a win against Gaethje, I mean, they're doing it for the imaginary belt, the BMF belt. But I mean, if Holloway beats Gaethje, which is a lightweight that's highly ranked, I think Holloway deservingly would get to go against Taporia.
Yeah, but even if he loses though, it's in the lightweight division. So can you penalize him for losing at a higher division like that?
I don't know. I don't know if you can. I mean, because it is a higher division, but then you go back to what UFC worries about the most, the marketing. Can they market Holloway getting a title shot after coming off of a loss?
Yeah, sure you can. They can do whatever they want. I mean, these rankings are good and like symbolic, but we've seen a lot of times where they gave Jorge Masvidal a immediate rematch and he lost against Usman, which doesn't really make sense. So they do what they want, but like you said, the optics of it probably wouldn't look good if they let him fight for the title after losing. But I don't know what the options would be at this point, because like I said, they don't need to rush Volk back in there, man. He needs to take, I think, a year minimum off. But I mean, he says like with his mental health that he likes to stay active, but I mean, your physical health it's going to deteriorate if you keep hopping back in there sooner. So I don't know. They have not problems, but like it's good problems trying to figure out who to put Superior in there next. But we'll keep our eyes on what happens. But featherweight division, has a bright future. Now they got this young blood with the belt. So I'm excited to see what Superior does next. But that brings us to the end of the show. And they actually have a pretty intriguing fight on next weekend. So I'm thinking about maybe doing a quickie episode, maybe a full episode, because they are going to be in Mexico City. I think this is the first time they've been there since the pandemic happened. I might be wrong. They may have had like one fight there, actually. Maybe Moreno fought on there, but it's Brandon Moreno versus Brandon Royval. I want to say this is a rematch. And then
I was going to say, I think they fought before.
Yeah, and then you got Yair Rodriguez versus Ortega in the co-main event. That's going to be good.
I mean, that one right there is probably going to have title implications, possibly against Taporia. So you got to see if Holloway wins and what happens with that one.
Yeah. Also got the young kid Rosas Jr. on there as well. So, like I said, we'll keep listeners posted, whether we put some content out covering that one on all social media platforms. But make sure to like and subscribe on the Haymaker YouTube pages, also the Belly Up Sports YouTube page, and also subscribe on all of the podcast platforms, the Apple, the Spotify, and iHeart. So make sure to subscribe to all of that. But that'll do it for us here at Haymaker Combat Sports. Until next time, be safe out there. Later.
Hit the takedown, ground and pound, that was from the top. Heel hooking, no more plot, I leave you in the knot. Pound for pound, been the greatest, sitting on the top, and I'm laughing at the